Hello everyone, welcome to The Power Pause. I'm your host, Rabbia Moeed. Today I have a very super talented and a closest friend of mine that I've known for almost 18 years now. She's a licensed and registered psychotherapist, Tamara Fernandez. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you.
I know. I can't believe we know each other for
that long.
So many years.
So many years.
Yeah.
So technically we grew up knowing each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So all those university days and, the days after. Yeah, it's been... So Tamara, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so that's a question. I don't know where to start, but maybe I'll start with sharing that. First of all, as my identity, I'm a mom. So a wife and a mom to 4 kids, 1, angel baby. And professionally in my career, I'm a registered psychotherapist and also a behavior analyst. I'm also a sister to 2 siblings. I have 2 siblings. So that's just a little bit generally about me.
Am I getting to know you all over again?
I know, right?
So Tamara, what inspired you to become a registered psychotherapist and a behavior analyst?
Yeah.
What inspired you to become that person?
So you know what? I think like growing up, so I grew up in India, right? And I'm sure you know that, right? So I grew up in India. I immigrated to Canada when I was 15. And growing up in India, there's a lot of stigma around mental health and things like that. And I remember in our family, there were sort of very, strict rules on how to behave and how to act. And I remember there were a few neighborhood people who struggled a lot with their mental health. And they would, my family would sort of help them and support them. But I would notice that they just weren't sort of getting better. They weren't able to integrate in life. They were very isolated. And I remember as a kid, like I used to always feel things deeply. Whenever I felt anything, whether it be anger or happiness or sadness, I felt it very deeply, right? And I had a lot of empathy. So I would always sit there and I would always wonder, like, is there a way, we can help these people? Is there a way? Everyone has so much potential in them, right? And so I think I always carried that with me. And when I immigrated to Canada, it was a really tough transition. When I was 15 in grade 10, there was a lot of bullying. There was a huge adjustment, culture shock, and all of that. And I just don't think we had the right supports then, right? To, help integrate and transition and get used to the culture and,
accept it all at once together, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
We had to figure things out
on our own,
right?
kind of a thing, yeah.
And so, when going to university, I was actually very confused in terms of what I wanted to do. So I applied, this was before we met, right? So I applied to aerospace engineering. At Ryerson, I remember. I applied to, I think, accounting. I could not do accounting for the life of me. And then I was like, you know what, why don't I apply to psychology? Actually, my parents encouraged me to apply to psychology because they knew me, they saw me grow up, they saw the empathy that I had. And so they encouraged me to apply to psychology because they said, you know what, with psychology, you could go into any field, right? Whether it be HR or you can decide whatever you want to do after. So I started psychology and I remember taking a lot of courses in like science and math, and I really sucked in those courses, to be honest.
I don't think so, Tamara. You've always been the smartest.
No, you know what? My psychology courses were like really, I used to get really good grades in that, and it just made sense to me. It just like came naturally, it flowed. It didn't feel like I was studying a course. It just more felt like it just spoke to my heart, right? It was very natural. The assignments, the tests, I didn't really spend too much time on it. And I noticed that with that understanding of psychology, the courses that I took, I was able to put words to the feelings that I was having towards other people who needed support and so on. So I think that really kickstarted my journey into psychology, and that's where I stuck, that's where I stayed. And then I went on to do my master's in counseling psychology because I felt like I wanted to kind of specialize a little more in supporting people and offering counseling and really helping people like discover their potential, right?
So what exactly are you doing? Are you working from home? You have your own clinic? How is that?
Yeah, so I initially started with working at other clinics, like group practices and stuff like that. And I just wanted to bring more of compassionate care, more affordable care. So that's where I started my own clinic. It's called Tamara Fernandez Counseling and Psychotherapy. It's mostly virtual for now, but I do offer in person. Like I've partnered with another organization. And a lot of the work that I do in my clinic is more pro bono staff or lower fees, more affordable therapy, because therapy costs like so much money. And if you don't have insurance, right, it's really inaccessible. So I wanted to really make sure therapy is accessible for people. I wanted to make sure it's affordable, it's compassionate, and people don't have to worry about distance or where they are to access therapy. So that's primarily what I do in my own practice, is a very affordable, accessible for people. And a huge population of mine in my own practice is women that I serve too.
Okay, so Tamara, how do you apply that theory into techniques for people to come over what they're going through? Whether it's anxiety or PTSD, anything,
right,
you name it. How do you do that?
I think, at the core of all of us as being human, we have this deep sense, this deep need to feel a sense of belonging, connection, and to feel seen and heard, right? And I think that's at the core of every human being. Whatever we try to do, we want to find a sense of meaning and purpose in life. And so when I engage with people who are experiencing anxiety and PTSD, we focus really on the relationship that we share as a therapist and a client, really creating a safe space, right? A space that's non-judgmental, unconditional positive regard, right? A space that's empathetic. You're really present, right, for your clients, and creating a space where they feel seen and heard, and that sense of belonging and connection, right? And then once they feel that, they develop motivation and a drive to want to work on different techniques. And so then when you offer evidence-based strategies, strategies backed by research, different techniques, they're more willing to implement it, right? Because they feel seen, they trust you, they feel heard, they don't feel judged. A lot of the therapy that I do is not very much focused on hardcore like techniques, like you have to do this technique. It's more focused on helping people discover themselves, learn about themselves, identify the obstacles and like the limiting beliefs based on their experiences, and then implement, tools and techniques accordingly, right?
Okay. So Tamara, you work with such a variety of clients, right? People who have PTSD, anxiety, show parents, couples, newcomers. What drives your passion and to support these bunch of groups?
Yeah. I think it's like twofold. One is related to sort of what I've experienced before, right? The inaccessibility, the stigma around mental health, especially in our South Asian culture, or Eastern cultures rather. There's a lot of stigma around, mental health. You're okay, you're fine, you don't need to reach out.
It's a taboo topic. You can't be talking about it either,
Exactly, right? And even growing up too, right? It's like, you're fine, stop crying, don't cry.
And you're too sensitive, or it could be anything and everything.
And that really shuts down a part of you, right? The part of you that sense of self, that part of you that has that creativity, that originality, truly who you are, and you start to kind of like morph and become who you think you should be, or who people think you should be, right? And it really doesn't allow for your true self to show. So I think that's definitely one reason. And then the other reason is I've also experienced, close people, whether it be family members or friends, really experience mental health struggles, have a hard time coping. There have been, unfortunately, a few people who have died by suicide as well, right? And it's just, it's such a loss, because I believe that every human has potential in their own way. And so I think those are the two reasons that.
But don't you think some people like shy away from asking help?
They do, right?
And then, so how do you help those people, or some people who are embarrassed, or whatever that reason they could be having? What do you do? I
think a lot of people, pick up the phone and I offer free consultation, right? So it's a 15-minute free consultation. So a lot of people pick up the phone and they're like, I don't know if this is for me. I have to think about it, and so on. And I always say to them, like, you go to the gym, right? You focus on your diet, right? And you do all of that for your physical health, right? But then we also know that when you're stressed, that can impact your physical health. So it kind of cancels whatever you're doing, it cancels it out, right? So if you're going to the gym and working on your diet and really focusing on your physical health, then I equate it to sort of what are you doing for your emotional health, right? To minimize the stress, to help support whatever physical techniques you're using, right? It's also like therapy is also a very confidential space, right? So it's a profession where like even if a family member asks, is my daughter or my daughter-in-law, right, going to therapy, I can't disclose that. Nobody's supposed to know.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. No, absolutely. So how do you make your client feel like when they're in that session with you? What exactly do you give the assurance of? Like,
Right.
how do you do that?
So it's a lot of it is really getting to know the client, right? I really want to know, like, if you put aside, you know, the struggles that you're experiencing, your anxiety, the depression, the trauma that you've had, who are you as a person, right? Like, what do you enjoy doing for fun? You know, what are you doing for work? What do you do in your life, right? What made you reach out? What brings you joy? What makes it difficult for you? So I really want to get to know them as people. I wouldn't say necessarily as friends, but it's a more casual environment, right? I'm not sitting there with like a notepad and a pen with a suit, right, in a very clinical way. I really make sure like the dressing, the clothes that I wear, the way I present myself, right, you know, the body language that I bring is a very open. The space that I use, I make sure, you know, is a very warm, welcoming space. And I really want to get to know the person for like, who are you, right? What is it that you want to achieve? What are the potential, like, what are those aspects of you that have been dampened maybe by certain beliefs or in terms of how you should be? So I ask a lot of like personal questions as though you're getting to know somebody at like a networking event, or like you meet somebody in university and you become friends with them, right? So it's a very relaxed atmosphere, not like, tell me about your problems, let's work on this, right? We don't even go there for the first like 5 to 6 sessions, right?
Wow, that's something.
Yeah.
You know, it's incredible work that you're doing. Tell me, how do you manage your family, kids, and when I say stressful career that you've chosen, is because, you know, there's a lot that you take in.
Right.
As people come in, they're bringing their own trauma, they're bringing their own things that have been through. How do you manage it all with your kids, with your partner? How do you cope up with that?
If you ask my partner, he'll have a different answer.
I've heard all those versions.
No. But you know what? He gets all versions of me, right? It is very difficult, to be honest. I think at the start, I would think that my kids had all the possible developmental delays, and I would give my husband like all these personality tests to do, and you know, it really I think it really merged with my personal life, and it started to get to a point where I would go to social events, for example, and, you know, people ask, what do you do? And if I said psychotherapist, people would just be like, okay. And
they'll walk away.
And then they would say, you know, I'll just be right back. And walk away. And then I would find like, okay, like I'm standing here and now the people who know what I do, you know, are tending to move away, right? And so I started to notice that it merged a lot with my personal life. And I think because of that, you know, there would be a lot more maybe like disagreements, or I wasn't really present for my kids. I wouldn't really attend there. I was so burnt out. I was so tired, right? And I think that was a turning point for me where I realized, you know, what are my values in life, right? And my values are my family, my friends, relationships, and building that. And so I think that's when things took a turn where I really reflected. So I got my own therapist, right, to work on, you know, what comes up for me. I got some supervision in the field, and then I really had to establish strong boundaries. And I think the biggest thing that I had to learn was learning to say no, right? I think as a woman, sometimes in culture, we're made to feel like we can do it all, right? Like as a mom, you're supposed to...
You're a mom, you're not a superhero, you can't do it all.
Exactly, right? And so just going...
But the expectations are there too.
Yes, the expectations
it is a South Asian culture too.
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah, like you're a mom, you got to maintain your house, you got to cook, you got to take care of your kids got to you academically be good, you got to support your partner, you got to, you know, be there with your in-laws and your family. Like there's a lot of expectations, and you gotta, there's this idea created that as a woman you gotta like do it all and have it all sort of together, right?
I believe it's easy for the women who are actually, just a mom, staying at home and, focusing more. I'm not saying it's easier. They're obviously they're doing so much more than we can think of too. But people who are actually working, establishing career, running jobs, or like working 9 to 5 every day, coming home tired, it's a little more challenging.
It is more challenging.
Yeah, because you're doing double the work.
Yeah, and it's rewarding. Like it's something that I would never give up ever, right? But it's also very challenging at the same time, right? So I had to really learn to accept help and learn that it's okay to ask for help, to lean on your family, right? My family has been really great with supporting, whether it be childcare or dropping food sometimes, right? I had to really lean on my partner. I had to really, lean on my friends and get the support that I needed. Not looking at it as I can't do it or I'm not good enough, but looking at it as this is going to help me be a better version of myself and actually achieve and do what I need to do, right? And live in accordance with my values. So then I had to establish strong boundaries, and then I incorporated, a lot of self-care, right? So I'd have, my work hours would be my work hours in a specific office space. And when I leave there, I would...
Everything stays there.
Everything stays there.
You come home with an open mind, empty mind kind of a thing.
Exactly. I would take usually half an hour, right, between work and then getting into my family. And I noticed that changed a lot, right? We were a lot happier. We were more connected. Yeah, so I would say that was my turning point. And
wow. I'm actually, glad to hear that, because coming from you being a psychotherapist yourself, you were saying that you needed it too. Because time to time, I believe we all need that kind of a, time out from everything else.
Yeah.
So you're in power pause. I was just going to ask you that question. When is that moment where you decided you needed that pause to, restart something or reestablish something? Right. When was that moment for you?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? One is I was working in a job, in a career that paid me well, right? But at the same time, it wasn't really fulfilling in the sense that it was very limited in what I was doing. I remember having to go into the office, things were very strict in terms of what time you went in, what time you could leave, right?
Okay.
And I had this opportunity actually come my way. There was the owner of the clinic that I moved to, reached out to me on LinkedIn and offered me sort of more of a contractor sort of position. And I've always been used to like employee, right? Because growing up, we hear employee, that's secure, you got to go for that, right? And so I never imagined myself to be like an entrepreneur, move into contracting and not work a 9 to 5, right? And have that flexibility. So when she reached out to me, I was actually on maternity leave with my second. And I was like, there's no way I could pivot, right? Because we need that stability. And so we had a meeting. She's an entrepreneur herself. Actually, she's a business coach right now as well.
Okay.
We had that meeting. It was a really great meeting. And I just felt like this is going to take me to new heights. This is going to really allow that true self in me that was dampened with these limiting beliefs about work and career and life and what that should look like. It really gave me that excitement. But at the same time, I remember feeling that excitement, like I really wanted to do it and just quit and like the next day go into that. But at the same time, I was also very nervous because I didn't really trust myself, right? I didn't really believe in myself. And so a few months went by and her partner actually reached out and they, for some reason, really wanted me to join. They saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself at that point. And just seeing somebody else believe in me that way, I would say that combined with my partner, who was very supportive, he was like, you have so much potential, you should do it, right? Like, go for it. And I was like, you know what? There's other people seeing this in me.
And you're just
I
blocking
can see it in
yourself.
myself, right?
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Why don't we just take the risk? Sometimes we feel very scared to take risks, right? And sometimes taking risks can be the best thing that could ever happen because it could, no doubt it's difficult, but it could open you and expand the horizons and really bring out your potential. So I said, you know what? Let me take the risk. And I took the risk and I did take that position and I transitioned. That's when I moved into, the registered psychotherapist role and stuff like that. And I remember the first 6 months were horrible. I was so depressed in that role. And it's funny, the reason I was depressed was because the owners, my bosses, would not check in on me. They would not follow up to see, what are you doing? What time are you coming? They wouldn't micromanage.
Because you were so used to this whole
exactly
thing
right?
that you want it to be the same.
Exactly. I was so used to that. And so it was so funny because people I would tell, they'd be like, we all want that, right? And you have it and you don't want it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I sat with that for about 6 months. And then when I started to realize like, they genuinely trust me, they genuinely believe in my potential, it helped me start to believe in myself a little more. I started to see clients, I heard feedback, I saw so many people's life transform, clients who were contemplating suicide, changed their perspective. There were so many lives that were saved, right? Parents and families changed. And I think that was a turning point for me because I felt so secure. I felt so happy doing what I did. And I think the most important thing was I was able to give my kids and my family life the time that they needed. I was able to be there for their activities. I was able to go for their school shows. I was able to pick them up a little bit earlier and spend time with them, right? And that was definitely a turning point that pushed me to believe in myself. And till today, there are times where I'm like, is this really for me? But there's a much stronger part now that can see value in what it did for my family life. My kids really thrived, right? They really got access to their mom while also being able to have a career and pursue my dreams, right? Something I never imagined. So I think that was definitely a moment in my career that changed things and pushed me to really, use my true self and expand my potential, right? Yeah.
So, Tamara, in our show, we do this rapid fire round, which I've never shared the questions to you. I will just throw some questions, just need one-word answers. So, Tamara, many parents and individuals you work with experience burnout or identity struggles, right? What are some tools or strategies you often recommend them?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is self-care, right? Sometimes we think self-care are things like, going to the spa, getting your nails done, or doing something really extravagant. And that is self-care, right? But sometimes as a parent, you don't really have the time to schedule an appointment.
Or the energy to go out.
Or the energy, exactly, right? So I always educate parents and families. And also that's helped me think for myself is that self-care, if it feels like a chore, it isn't self-care, right? It cannot feel like a chore. And anything you do that does not feel like a chore, like I have to do this or I have to find the energy, I have to find this, that is not self-care. So really focusing on self-care, whether it be self-care? So whether it be like drinking a cup of coffee and taking 5 minutes staring into space or still looking at the trees because it's sort of your time, to be peaceful, right? That is self-care. So how can you prioritize who you are before you became a parent, before you became a spouse, before you had maybe your own practice or before you started working? It's really taking care of that version of you, right? That child version of you, really taking care of yourself to build your capacity to show up for other people or show up in the way you want, right?
I agree.
And really building the tools of patience with yourself, compassion, managing expectations, right? We have really high expectations from ourselves. We can be really critical. So really working on using a growth mindset, self-compassionate, self-encouraging statements, surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, not necessarily people who constantly bring you down, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So I think all of that is really important when transitioning, right?
Yes, absolutely. No, I agree with you, especially when you said not surrounding yourself with people who bring you down. I think your family, your friends, or your colleagues do matter a lot when it comes to and self-care, obviously, in my belief, in my perception, it could just be just relaxing. Just even for that 10 minutes nap is self-care.
Exactly.
You need that sometimes. You don't need to rush, or you don't need to show that you're having a self-care time. Self-care is not shown, it's not seen, it's just done.
Exactly.
That's what I think. So if you could speak to your younger self just when you were arriving in Canada, feeling uncertain, what would you tell to her that moment?
I would say so many things, right? So I think the first thing I would say is believe in yourself, right? A lot of the times our experiences can shape how we think, what we believe. So I would definitely want to tell my younger self to believe in yourself. You don't have to be perfect, right? You don't have to strive for perfection. Accept yourself as you are. Take one thing at a time. Really be present. Sometimes we, time travel into the past, reminiscing on what we could have, should have, would have done, and we crap on ourselves. Or sometimes we think about the future and we, become really worried about what we're going to do. And so staying grounded in the present moment, I would say, is key. I would also tell my younger self, spiritually too, right? To really focus on your spiritual life, because there's so many things we cannot control in the world today, right? And even back then. And spirituality, you're focused on God and really integrating God into your life gives you a sense of peace that I challenged, as a younger self, like a lot of younger people do. But finding peace in spirituality and faith can be very grounding as you journey, right? And I think lastly is, people, the judgment from people or you doing things because of the opinions of other people or to fit in, right? 10 years from now, is that going to matter, right? So to really follow your heart and take risks and believe in yourself is definitely what I would tell my younger self, right?
Yeah, that's amazing, honestly. Any message you want to give to the audience that are listening to you right now on our channel? And do share your Instagram or your website link where they can book you in. Any message you want to give them?
I really want to say, I think, going back to wrapping this up, taking risks can feel scary, but there's a difference between feeling and the reality and the truth. Even though it can feel scary, sometimes it is in the scary things that we grow as people, that push us beyond our limits. I would say really lean on people who you can trust and people who you find support him, people who are there to uplift you. It's okay to ask for help and it's okay to get that support, because it's only going to help you reach new heights and achieve whatever it is you want to achieve, right? And always follow your heart, right? It may not be right now, but always keep that at the back of your mind, working towards it, aiming for it in small steps, right? You have your whole life. You don't need to jump and achieve everything right away. But as long as you're committed, stay committed to your goals, your passion. You don't have to broadcast it to everybody necessarily, right? But in your heart, know what your passion is and constantly work towards it, because one day with that commitment and perseverance, you can achieve it, right?
That's a great message, definitely. So where can people follow you or your website link?
Yeah, so you can find me on, if you just Google my name, Tamara Fernandez, you'll find, the various clinics I work at. My website personally is Tamara Fernandez Counseling. So you can find me on there. There's a few clinics I work at, so all of that should show up.
Okay. So are you now ready? Thank you for that. Are you now ready for your rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Okay, Tamara. So
one word, right?
One word. Just one word. It's going to be very easy peasy kind of stuff. It's just for the power purpose. The book that's changed your perspective.
The Mountain Is You.
Your goals to stress reliever.
My goals to relieve stress?
Yes.
Self-care.
Okay. A phrase you say often in your therapy sessions.
Where does your power lie now?
Okay. What grounds you when life feels chaotic?
Drinking a hot cup of tea on my balcony, listening to a spiritual meditation.
Okay. A mom hack you swear by.
Oh, a mom hack I swear by.
I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but
yeah,
one of them.
That's interesting. A mom hack I swear by. You know what? Just go with the flow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Favorite part of being a therapist?
Seeing people achieve their potential.
Okay. A word that describes your current season of life.
Growth.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This was
Thank you.
fun
I
getting to know you all
know.
over again. So, anything else you would like to say at the end?
No, thank you for having me. This being on a podcast like this, it really gives me a chance to reflect in new ways. I'm sure in the 18 years of knowing each other, these are not things we've really discussed at a deeper level. And it's so amazing and exciting to be with you, at this sort of phase in your career, right? Your entrepreneurship journey. It's really exciting to share this opportunity with you. So.
Well, thank you, Tamara, for coming here today. And honestly, you inspiring and keep inspiring. You've always been an inspiration from day one, since day when I met you. Always been such a, supportive friend. And I'm sure you're a great, great therapist too.
Thank you.
And if you're looking to reach her out, she's already shared her Instagram page. We'll share that in the link as well. Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching. See you next time.
Thank you.